All right, hello, everyone. Time being 7:08, I would like to call the Abington Capital Planning Committee to order. All members are present, except for member Tim Chapin, messaged me, couldn't make it here tonight. We also have with us our town manager, our assistant town manager, and we also have our town treasurer. And with special guests tonight as well, we have Fire Chief John Nuttall, and we also have Police Deputy Chief Chris Cutter. So let's get the ball rolling. The first item on our agenda is the minutes of our February 11th, 2021 meeting. Any discussion on that? Anyone, you have the chance to look it over?
I did. Yep, look good.
All right, sounds
Right.
good. Hearing any motions to approve the minutes of February 11th, 2021?
I'll make a motion. to
All right,
approve.
Steves makes the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, Marty makes the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, unanimous. All right, next on, so the minutes of the February 11th, 2021 meeting have been approved. Next on to our agenda item, Big Night, discussion proposing 5-year capital project and equipment plan. First for us with the fire department capital plan, Fire Chief John Nuttall. And I will share
Thank
the
you.
screen of the capital plan. Hold on, make sure it's there. Bingo.
Thank you while you're doing that. And thank you, everybody, for being here and volunteering your time with us. And just to give you an idea of what we've been through, it seems actually refreshing to be doing budget items rather than COVID or vaccines. And that's a very strange statement to make, but
Amen.
Marty will probably back me on that.
100.
So the fire department capital plan, there's not a lot of items. Unfortunately, because it's the fire department, they tend to be fairly expensive because it's apparatus and large equipment. Luckily, that there's not a lot of them, and these are more future replacements, nothing too immediate right now. We're actually in good shape with a lot of the equipment and apparatus that we have. I did have a conversation with Scott today in a couple of these, and a couple of things I'll be deferring for him because of his experience, and there is one new addition, unfortunately, for FY22 that came in literally an hour ago, and I did have a chance to send that to Scott and Sue. They probably haven't even had a chance to look at it. And that is to repair 2 more sections of Station 2's roof. This is old for us as well. We're tired of dealing with Station 2 roof issues. However, it is what it is. So basically, Station 2 has a total of 4 roof surfaces. If you look at Station 2, if you can imagine the main garage part in the middle, that is one roof. That's the largest roof. To the left of that is really an equipment in the services portion of that building. You know, we have the boiler room and certain parts like that. To the right of the apparatus floor is the living quarters roof. That's the same size as the mechanical roof. And then there is a small roof at the top of the hose tower. Now, last year, we had to do an emergency repair replacement of the mechanical roof in the hose tower roof because we had basically a family of raccoons that get in there. Unbeknownst to anybody, they caused unbelievable damage. And when we had the first water, it was just completely pouring in. That has all been completely repaired and replaced. We have no issues there. The snowstorm that we just had about 2 weeks ago with the real heavy, thick, wet slush, that we really haven't had that type of snow here in a number of years, fortunately. But we started to get roof leaks in the main apparatus floor in the living quarters in numerous places. I don't believe we've ever had a leak in the living quarters since I've been here for 30 years. So that was a first. We have had them occasionally in the apparatus floor. We went up on the roof and discovered about 6 inches of standing water and slush. It was just a sponge. All of us that day, including myself, the entire shift, I ordered up on that roof with shovels. Everybody worked. Within an hour, we had everything completely cleared. However, the damage has been done. The amount of weight that we estimated that was on that roof from that standing water was several tons. And unfortunately, when you had that much weight pushing the water down, it found its way in through whatever damage was there. It was difficult to find that day. but the damage has occurred. Any rain that we're getting now, we're beginning to get small leaks again. I had a roofing contractor there yesterday, again, to look at it following another leak, and he gave me an estimate. Basically, what you're looking for is the dollar figure. I'm gonna be asking for about $35,000 to replace the last two portions of Station 2's two remaining roofs, which will be the main apparatus roof and the living quarters roof. It's basically $25,000 for one and about $10,000 for the other one. And that will include completely stripping down all materials that are there and adding the insulation in a brand new roof covering membrane. I do not know if the original roof is there. That roof was replaced about 20 years ago. I believe it was a repair, not a replacement, but I'm not sure, to be honest with you. And unless they get invasive and begin to tear into it, they can't be sure. Either way, the quote they gave us is a complete replacement of those roofs. That will leave both fire stations with every roof surface less than 10 or 8 years old, assuming we're able to do this. Now, I'm gonna have a second conversation with Scott and Sue to see if this could be an emergency repair somehow funded some other way to get this done now, or if we have to wait for a capital plan for FY22. I understand that. I just don't know how much damage is gonna occur in the remaining winter and spring months, assuming we have a wet spring. So that's my first item for FY22, or perhaps FY21, is $35,000 to replace and repair the new roof leaks at Station 2 that have just occurred. Do you folks have any questions on that, or?
Yeah, I guess for Sue and Scott, right? So this sounds like an emergency thing. How do we normally fund emergencies?
It's a good question. Yeah, I mean, I don't know about, I just found out about it today, so.
Yeah.
You know, obviously we have to deal with it. And, you know, we could, you know, we don't want to spend a ton of money on it. If it's just a patch, that's one thing, but we also want to do it right. We want it to be safe. And even if we were to go ahead and build a new station, it's you know, it's like the furnaces. I mean, these guys are going to be living in there for the next 3 or 4 years minimum.
Yeah, no, I agree, because you know,
So yeah,
even if the new station is in our future, that's not tomorrow, right? So yeah, I mean, if we want to get this fixed now, even before we get to fiscal year 2022, I'm just curious. Well, I'm not sure if we know right now, but how would we fund that? Is there a way to fund that now? And then,
yeah, we'll look at every option. I mean, we can
Yeah.
look and see what's going to be left in, you know, at the end of the year. If we, you know, again, we've asked everybody to be real careful on their budgets and on their spending. So, you know, maybe we do some transfers at the end of the year, or reserve fund transfer. As you know, we had a healthy amount in the reserve fund with the finance committee this year, anticipating budget shortfalls or possible ones that we'd want to be able to have some access to the reserves for. So there's money there. You know,
Okay.
we'll find a way to get it done.
yeah, because even if we're starting to round out the end of snow season, fingers crossed, there's still rain in the spring, right? So it might not be we're out of the woods just yet.
Yeah.
Chief Metal, it's Chris Coyle. Can I just ask more of a, I guess it's more of a random question. Forgive me for not knowing this one. Which station is Station 2?
My apologies, and that's a good question. Thank you. Station 2 is the smaller substation on the corner of Rockland Street and Brockton Ave.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that. I just assume it half the time because I know that there's newer people in town that may not know that as well. So I'm actually glad that you brought that up, and I should have said that.
No problem.
Thank you. All right, so the actual FY22 item that I had for my 5-year capital plan is a cost to be determined to begin looking at if we can move forward with a fire station project. Now, I've had several meetings with Scott as well as the fire station building committee as to what way to try to present this to the town. We've done the study. It was determined that the two existing stations, even though we're maintaining them, We've simply outgrown them. They don't meet the needs of a modern department. There's serious issues on both sides beyond the mechanical, just in terms of size and health issues where a modern fire station would take care of that. It's really not worth building onto these stations because we don't have the room or land you'd either plot, and the location's really not the best. So the study suggested a new fire station, which would combine both stations. Then these two stations at that point, assuming this would happen, would be determined surplus and they could be sold, or the town can do what they want with them. So I'm not looking to have a total of 3 fire stations. I'm looking to condense the 2 existing fire stations into one single new fire station at a more central location. That location right now we're looking at is the wooded lot across from the Abington High School on Glenevich Way. We actually do own some land in there. There could be a few land acquisitions somewhat. So talking to Scott on this, with some of the meetings we had, he was suggesting, and I'm going to defer to Scott in a moment if I could, because he has experience building major projects like this with his former town in Duxbury. I do not have the experience doing this. I'm going to defer to him. But one of the ways we could do it is to at least ask for the building engineer documents, the architectural renderings, and some of the site work studies that could be done. I'm ballparking, we could be between probably $1.5 to $3 million to get all of that done. That's not the entire project whatsoever, but by doing that, that will give us a much closer estimate what the cost of an entire project to build the structure, to put all of the items in the structure, the site work. It's not just the building we're building, it's an entire project, all that goes into that. And that may be an easier way to get that dollar figure if we do that first part first. Scott, would you mind expanding on that with your experience?
Yeah, exactly. So as the chief said, you know, the feasibility study committee, they took a look at this and they looked at what the best option for the town was and the most feasible option for the town. What they finally came up with was one site and consolidate both buildings. So going forward, our next step on that, that committee will present this, and they have presented it. The study's out. They'll present this to finance committee, your committee, board of selectmen, and a town meeting. And as we present it, we'll ask for, in this particular case, I would suggest that we ask for design money. And the design is typically somewhere around 8 to 10% of your project cost, depending on the magnitude of the project. Right now, the estimates on this is close to $30 million. So we're assuming our design, and when I say design, this is full design. The money that we're going to ask for will include, as the chief said, investigation work, soil samples, borings. It will have full set of bid documents, 100% plan documents, and it will also include putting this project out to bid. So if we were to go to town meeting with the warrant article this year and say we need $3 million for this, and town meeting says yes, okay, and we have a ballot and they say yes, okay. When we come back the following town meeting, we're going to have already put this out to bid, and we're going to say, look, we have a contractor on the hook for X amount of dollars. We need this to do this project. And at that point, town meeting, you know, obviously they've got, you know, the town's already aware of the project, well aware of it. They've got some skin in the game, and they'll either fund it at that point or not. Every year that we put it off, things are going to get worse, and the price is just going to continue to escalate. So that is, I think, what we'll be looking at. You'll see a warrant article this year. There are the alternative method to do this, and you know, either way, they both have their ups and downs, but the alternative method is we go to town meeting and we say we need $30 million and we're going to build a new police station, and this includes design and construction. And say, for, you know, town meeting says, okay, everybody agrees, they realize it makes sense, and we do that. And then we go out and I have soil samples done and borings done and plans drawn, and they realize it's a little more complicated than we thought. And then our bids come in higher than we estimated or higher than we thought because we didn't do all the upfront work. Then we're in an awkward position of not having asked for enough money. So my preference is to do it this way, do it over 2 years, 2 stages, gives the town a chance to become familiar with the project, understand the project, understand what the costs of the projects are going to be, gives us time to figure out, how we're going to bond it, pay for it over, whatever, how many every years and what else and the other nice part of the establishment of this committee and the 5-year plan, it also gives us sort of that long-term big picture of, what else do we have coming our way after, we've got this project, but what else is in the pipeline over these next few years too.
Thank you, Scott. Now, the mechanics of town government, if you would, or town meeting, I'm not even sure that this capital item goes under the fire department budget. I have no problem putting it there, and I included it. Technically, this may actually be the fire station building committee that would propose this warrant article, or it could be a town manager one. Either way, I just figured to get the conversation going, I just put it under the umbrella of the fire department. Obviously, it's a fire department issue. I'm just not quite sure technically what committee would technically want to present this at a town meeting. But for right now, just to have the conversation, I included in my capital plan.
Right,
So that
thank you.
dollar figure, again, we don't know. We're gonna meet with the project engineers, hopefully next week, and try to really get a dollar figure for you. I believe we're probably in the $1 to $3 million range. It's a ballpark, but we're gonna try to clarify that because you're gonna need to know what that is. If there's no questions on that, I can move forward to the FY 2023.
1 to
Yes.
3 million for the. What was it?
That'll be design.
1 to 3 million for the design?
Yeah, that'll be design and all the way up through bidding.
Like architects?
Yep, architects, engineering, a little bit of legal.
And do those particular things go out to bid too?
They did that already when they hired when the group went out and did the study. The first thing that they did is they followed what's called the design selection law. And anytime you spend more than like $1.5 million on a building or something to that, you have to go through a special procurement to find the most capable engineering firm for your project. And so they already did that a long time ago when they put the study group together. Within that document and within that bid document, there is you're allowed to carry that person over, that firm over to the next phase if you so choose to. The committee has given me every indication that they're very happy with the work of KVA in their plan, and I wouldn't recommend that we reinvent the wheel and start from scratch with another firm. So there are savings, obviously, in going forward. Like I said, in any firm that you go with, typically the next fee, the designer fee, is it's sort of a percentage of what your ultimate cost is going to be. So, when they look at this, in this particular case, it was KVA who they used, and they come up with the schematics, and it's sort of, hey, this is sort of the building that will work for you, and it still needs refinement, but they kind of look at all of those needs and put them all together. Then they actually have independent people who look at it and throw estimates on it, square foot estimates on it. So, that's where they've gone. They've gone all the way through sort of this whole needs analysis. What works, what will work for your department. They've got all the blocks put together, and they've got the sort of the guesstimate on the cost, square foot estimate. So now what the next step is, if town meeting wants to go further and what the 3 million will cover, we'll be bringing those plans that are probably, I don't know, Chief, what do you think? Maybe you have 20 or 30 pages now. You'll have about 230 pages of, 3x4 or 2x3 plans with an incredible amount of detail for every single specialty within that building, with, electrical and plumbing and HVAC, painting and finishing and windows and, you name it. So that's the level of detail that they'll go into in this next section, and it's very expensive. But yeah, so they already did a procurement. They don't have to do another one. I've seen, if you were unhappy with the schematic, if that committee, I should say, was unhappy with the product that they got at the end of the study, I would recommend that they do go with someone else, but they're not. They're very pleased with the work.
Yeah, no. My not fear, but it's sort of been talked about that the $30 million bill, are they planning building? Because I hear a lot of pushback on that, as opposed to a different number. I know it's sort of like where we start, but if we're planning on a $30 million building, I'm making a general assumption. And again, I don't build, but 30 million and like an $8 million thing are very different. So that was the only reason that I asked.
The $30 million estimate, that includes the entire project. That includes the structure, that includes the site work, the architectural renderings, as well as all of the furnishings. When I say furnishings, I'm not just talking chairs and curtains. I mean radio equipment, telephone equipment, all the IT equipment, the furnishings. That is not cheap, actually, in any type of a building like that. Office supplies, major office supplies, such as a filing system, like you see in the police station. We have antique filing cabinets. The police have a modern records room that we also could use as well. So all of those things are what turn an $8 million building. When you start filling that building with all of these items, that's what increases the entire project up to that amount.
Got it.
Excellent.
And I would like to, I think probably in the very near future, after the committee's met with KVA, I would have that committee, and we could ask, I'm not sure how many presentations KVA will do, but we certainly could, bring a lot of that to this committee. And I do recommend that they do that and that you do meet with them.
So is that final, and I should probably know this, but is that final study posted somewhere for all to read?
Yeah, we've had it. It's on the fire department site. I think it's been on the town hall site. We've had that. This study came out about a week before COVID hit last year, almost a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
The timing was incredible. And that's another reason this has kind of come to an abrupt stop. Just with everything going on in the world in the last year, and our departments had to retool our operations to really focus on that. But it is posted. If you go on the Abington Fire website, the Abington Fire Facebook page, it's the first item you're going to see is that document we have there. I believe it's still in the town website. Well, the fire department is on the town website, but that is posted.
Okay. Just asking in case anyone watching is curious, because I know of it, but I don't think I've ever looked at it. And then the other thing too is I know that early on, like before this even started, there was some talk that I think it was the old school on Plymouth Street could be a good site. So while, is there only one recommendation for a site, or is there like, should something catastrophic happen to that site, there's a backup site?
Yeah, there was a couple of sites proposed. The North School, I actually liked that site. However, when the study came out, it's a very tight site. Believe it or not, it's a triangular piece of land, just about a little over 2 acres in a large traffic island. We tried rearranging the building, redoing the building, everything to fit in that site, and it was just very awkward. And there was very limited parking in that site. There was almost no room for training in that site. We do training there now because it's wide open and why not, but there was almost no land or large way that site was, because they've also got, certain setbacks as well. So that's a major challenge that we ran into. The secondary challenge was with the traffic in that area. Plymouth and Birch Streets right there in the corner of North School by New England Art. It's a very congested spot. We did a traffic study that would show it was over like, I think 58% of all of our responses will be going up Washington and Adams Street, right at that small triangular traffic. It's like a little park there.
Mhm.
That was not insurmountable, but it's somewhat problematic. And the other one was heading up towards the lights at Route 139 and 58 at North Ave and Plymouth Street. That was one of the congestion points as well. So when we looked at the traffic study from that point, those were some of the issues, and those are long-term. Those are not easy fixes.
Mhm.
The Glenevich Way site that we're looking at, we'd probably be looking at adding a road directly out at some point onto 18, because we all know how Glenevich Way is in the real world when we're back to school. At some point, it's a traffic jam 2 or 4 times a day. There are some technology things we could do to control the traffic in the short term. Long term, we'd like to have a road to dump out directly onto Route 18, and that is the geographic center of this town for the most part. And the response plans that we had from that point, that was the best numbers we've ever seen for response times for the vast majority of the town. So it's a little more complicated to do it in the short term, but long term, I think for the town, it would be a much better location to have your fire station there. There's a lot more land there. We can, we're kind of in the hub of the town hall library, the major schools are right there. We're kind of Switzerland right now with the fire department, so we're not easy to get to. And with Route 18, the way it is now, it actually got worse. So when all of those studies came into play, that it really was an attractive site on 18. Working with Scott, he had queried a number of businesses around here between basically on the Route 18 corridor from 123 Brockton Ave up to 139, if not more north to where we are now, to see if anybody was interested at some point in selling land like that. We really had no bites on it. There's not much land left in town. In the minimum size lot we're looking for, believe it or not, for a fire station like this is about 4 acres, 4 or 5 acres. And that sounds immensely large, but it is a large building. But when you figure the parking in the apparatus turnaround and training area that we need for that, that's what's giving us a large footprint. We don't have a lot of land left in town in these areas.
I have a couple of questions, and I'm sorry about turning this into a fire station meeting here.
Want
But
us to use the golf course?
how much land is across the street from the high school?
There's actually a lot of land. Top of my head, I don't know.
Okay.
I think it's
over-
in the
it's
area
over
of
5
7
acres.
acres.
7 acres.
I believe, but it's not all
Yeah.
buildable. It's gerrymandered somewhat because of the wetlands. And the way we're looking at it, there will be like a narrow corridor to get to it, almost from the roundabout right there for business traffic, or just, business people want to go to fire station. And then it opens up into a much drier area. So it actually works out quite well working around the wetlands that are there. There's enough dry area that we actually could fit a station comfortably with ample room to grow in the future, should the town at some point either want to add a training facility or just a training yard, or any other things. Even if we looked at the North School, we're already looking at cutting the building down. There's zero room to grow.
Right.
That's one of the issues we have right now.
And the 30 million doesn't include the trading?
I'm sorry?
The 30 million doesn't include the training facility?
No.
Would the 30 million include the road?
Yeah, so that's my
No.
question.
We don't believe so. Again, we'd get better figures in the study with that.
Because I was also thinking that, there's been talk of the road up to West Abington, the fire station there. I'm assuming you'd want a road cutting up to Hancock Street.
When we did the traffic study, if we dump out pretty much at Lowe's up in that area, we
Yeah.
could go either north or south, either south
Yeah,
up
and-
towards 123 and around, or north up and around. It's directly in between our 2 stations now. So it really, it kind of nullified the response times up to the western part of town from that location.
Gotcha. And my last question, who's the chair of the fire station committee, or how many members on that committee?
That's a 5-person committee. There's 2 firefighters and 3 non-firefighters, all residents. The chair is Abington firefighter Derek Hamadi. The co-chair is Abington Fire Captain Jared Driscoll. And then we have Wendy Halpel, Roger Bodie, and Mr. Jim Dombrowski.
Thank you.
And
That's all.
I will pull up the 5-year capital. Bingo.
Thank you, Alex. And again, I'm very thankful that we have Scott with his experience doing this, because I'm not a builder. And with his experience doing this, I think it's going to be a great asset for the town moving forward, and hopefully going to save some money that we won't, to avoid some of these mistakes. So if there's no more questions on the fire station with that, and we will work on getting you that cost. Into FY23, you're going to see a repeating request of $10,000 per year for the next 4 years after that. That is to begin the long-term project of replacing our self-contained breathing air bottles. These are the air bottles that the firefighters wear when we go into a smoke-filled environment. Now, they're basically $1,000 a bottle, and each bottle has a 15-year lifespan. Now, right now, we replaced all of the bottles around 2013 and 2014 with a federal FEMA grant that we were able to get to do that. That was a large item, because at that time, most of the bottles were expiring. The purpose of this idea is to avoid, in about 10 years, having the town have to come up with another $50,000 to $60,000 cost to replace all of the bottles at that point. And it also staggers them so that they're not all going at the same time, because that could be a supply issue, which we've seen some other towns having now. If we're able to stagger the lifespan of these bottles over time, that's going to avoid both of those issues. Now, there's 2 ways of doing this. One is the capital request by asking for $10,000 a year. The other way to do this would be to increase my annual operating budget expenses by $10,000, and I could just simply buy about 10 bottles a year out of my operating budget. Either way, it's would work. I did not include this in my FY22 operating budget because I was going to gear this toward the capital plan, but between your committee as well as Sue and Scott and Sonia, we may come up with an alternative that's kind of as long as it's funded one way or the other. This isn't needed until FY23. The bottles we have right now are okay. This is not an emergent expense. This is a long-term cost savings or a cost replacement project to avoid all those issues for future chief at some point.
This is a question for Scott. Scott, in the bylaws that we adopted last week, it does say that a capital plan has to be over 25,000. I don't know whether that needs to be adjusted or.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of why, I don't, he could ask for 25,000 and say, I in
Put it all in 1 year.
or in 2 years or whatever. But I do want to talk to Sue about it and just kind of look at the best way to do it. I mean, certain things like, I guess the question is to the chief, say, we get to year 2026 and you've replaced them all, but then like the ones that we bought in 2023, when do those come back up again? What is the lifespan on the bottles?
It's a 15-year lifespan. And
So-
honestly, at that point, we may be looking at replacing the air packs themselves in the future.
So I think it's just something that we have to look at, that whether this should be, this particular item and the air pack or whatever, if it should be something in his expense budget or not.
Okay.
But otherwise, then maybe, at least the point to spreading them out is that he doesn't run into the problem again in the future where they all go bad in the future. So I think it's kind of overall, it is more than $25,000. He's just spreading it out.
So for the past capital planning stuff before we got the committee, it's always been 5,000, which is kind of low. So Scott sent you a template for someplace that, from another community. So if we think 25 is a little high so that we can meet some of these needs, if you didn't accept it yet, then we can, make it 10 instead of 25. But I know 5 is what the town of Abington is generally looked at. which in the long run, over the past 20 years, 15 years, that is a low number for a capital item.
That's something worth looking into if we want to.
Yeah. Did we ultimately accept the bylaws?
Yes, we did.
Ultimately, you accepted your section or you approved of your section, but there's gonna be a big package that eventually has to get approved by the selectmen. So, yeah, at any point in time.
We still have a
up
chance.
until then, yeah,
Yes.
we can make some adjustments.
Okay.
Yeah, we can make that, put that on for the agenda for our next meeting.
I think it's actually, I don't know, it probably should just be a continuous agenda item to review them until, we get it approved, till we do the final approval, because I think, as we're going through the process this year is when
Things will
things like
pop
this
in.
are gonna come up. This is where we're gonna realize, it's not a one size fits all plan.
Make sure that's on the future agendas.
Scott, is there a reason we couldn't make a motion to lower it to $5,000 tonight and just,
Well, I think 5,000 is too low, and I think, we don't have to, let's not rush into anything. Let's look at it. Me and, and you and Sue, or it's on you, let's have some internal discussions and then make a recommendation to the board. Again, the interpretation of it, I mean, this isn't one, this is these SCBA bottle replacement, the actual cost is $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. So it's not even that it is under 25,000. It's just that we broke it out over a series of years.
Could I, when are they coming due?
Well, I'm trying to stagger. Most of these were done in 2013. So 15 years from now, you're looking at really 2029 basically is when some of these are going to be coming to need to be replaced. I'm trying to get it so that we stagger these so that we don't have the large cache of all the bottles are due at the same time. They've been staggered out because it's not only a cost issue for the town at a future time, it could be a supply issue. These can be hard to get that many of the same type of bottles at the same time. By staggering them out, because the bottles change somewhat over time, we may have model whatever, and then 15 years from now, they slightly change the model on it. They still have to fit our air pack unless we change them as well as we go. But I'm just looking to avoid having to replace all of these bottles at the same time. Every 3 years, these have to be hydrostatically tested. And that's a cost I just incur as part of my regular operating budget. This would also spread out that cost, because if the age of the bottles and the age of when they're purchased has been staggered, that also helps me or future chiefs when they go to do their annual testing of these bottles. Instead of testing everything every 3 years, you could spread that cost out somewhat, and it's a little bit easier to absorb that in your operating budget. It's not an emergent issue. This is more, I'm trying to look long-term. It's a prioritized issue. We're at the point we can actually look at replacing these long-term into the future to avoid having all these issues I said before. So none of this is emergent. I'm just looking to help in the future. This would be, I think, a good program to get into, so we're not replacing them all in the same year.
Yeah, and the reason that thank you, Chief. The reason that I was asking is if some of them start coming due in 2028, is that what you said?
I
Or
believe so. Yep.
They all come due in 2028 or some?
It's going to be a lot of them, but if in the meantime we have been able to build up a cache of bottles at different ages, because not all of these pass the hydrostatic test every year. Every year we may lose one or two, and the older they get, that failure rate is going to go higher. We're talking, these have 4,500 pounds per square inch in these bottles. These are extremely high pressure bottles. So that's why they're tested so well. And it's really zero room for failure on these, or for error. So if there's any error, so once in a while we end up replacing them.
Yeah, so the only thing that I was saying is if we could do 10 of them, how many do you need? You need 40 of them?
We can never get enough bottles, is
Okay.
I guess the correct question. If you're a carpenter, you can never get enough clamps. You can never get enough bottles because, each firefighter in a driving seat in the apparatus, they call it a riding position. There is a Scott pack, the complete pack with the face piece, the straps that go around you in one bottle on that. Each one of those packs should have at least 2 spare bottles somewhere in the apparatus. So if each apparatus has anywhere between 4 to 6 air packs, you can see how that number balloons. We don't always have that many bottles on each truck to have, as well as we keep some in the stations as the spares. We can quickly swap them out, or if anything goes out. So I'd like to actually increase the amount of bottles that we have over the stock that we have now. And this is a good way moving forward to do that so that they're spread out as well.
Yeah, so my only thought was, could you spread it out a little more, right? So could you do 2023, 2026, 2029, just take it every 3 years and get the 10 bottles that you need? And does that get you where it is? That's why I was asking if all of them come due in 2028, only to not have it 15 years from now. Every single one of these is coming due, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. Do you know what I mean? Like spreading it out more if they'll last.
The longer we spread it out, I think the shorter the lifespan you're going to have when these come due. And by getting 10 each year, it just spreads it out that much thinner, so that you don't have, if we're getting them every 3 years, now you're getting into a hydrostatic testing thing that they're all, a third of the bottles are due in 1 year, or a quarter of the bottles in the department inventory are due in 1 year. That's going to be more expensive than if we are able to dilute this out a little bit more over the years. I understand where you're going with it. It's kind of, the cost is the same either way, but with time, by spreading these out over time with the number of bottles, I think ultimately it's going to be cheaper maintaining them and replacing them.
Yeah, it sounds like it's something that's obviously needed. It just, we probably should have planned in 2015 to do, you know what I mean? To spread these out better.
It's not really an issue at that point. We had time, to be honest with you. The priority then was some of the other equipment that we had here. Ambulances, the boilers, which we just did. There were roofing issues before. So it's kind of reached the point where now it can become a priority that we can try to address it. That's the main reason we haven't done it before.
Got it.
Right, if there's no more questions on the bottles, I can move on to 2024. And this is one of the big years. Now we're looking at replacing Abington Engine 1. That is the 1996 pumper that we have. It's an active spare at Station 1. When I say active spare, even though technically it's a spare, the minute any other engine goes down, that becomes a first line engine out the door for any subsequent calls if we get them. So even the spares typically tend to be frontline. These are tired engines because every engine that we own was once a frontline engine. And they're all frontline engines anywhere from 5 to realistically 8 years by the time we get a chance to relieve that. But then it goes into service at Station 2 as another immediate frontline engine. So they really don't get a break ever. We're in the middle of doing a rehab of our 3 older engines now. The first one came back. That was the 2002 engine 2. We put about 67,000 into that. And it's not new, but it looks like new. They did some major repairs on it, and just body-wise, it looks beautiful. Right now, we're doing engine 3, which is the 2007 E1. That was just painted this week. That should be coming back within a month. And then this engine, we're going to go late spring to get minor work done on this. I'm not investing a lot of money on this one. We're going to get it repainted and some body work on it, re-decaled, because it desperately needs it, because we're still going to have this engine for the next 3 or 4 years realistically. Even if we voted in 2024 to replace it, it takes a full year to get an engine. So we still have life in this engine, and there are still some sharp edges on it. We're going to take care of that now, even knowing that we'll be replacing it hopefully in 3 or 4 years just to maintain it. So the cost of this, and this is an accurate, unfortunately, estimate, a new engine around 2024 is probably $750,000. And I wish it wasn't. The cost of things are skyrocketing. I cannot believe the cost of fire apparatus. They're increasing almost 12% a year from what I'm hearing from the manufacturers. And they're going to continue to. There's really no end in sight with that, especially with more federal regulations with the emissions. They're getting very expensive. So that is an estimate of what I believe a new engine is going to cost in FY 2024 to replace the 1996 pumper, which at that point is going to be about 26 years old.
Anyone have any questions on the 1996 engine?
No.
Okay.
I was kind of hoping that the new fire station would come with a couple of new engines.
It
I
can.
wouldn't be opposed to that if somebody wanted to suggest that, but that would drastically increase the cost.
30,
of that project.
30 million, 32 million,
Yeah,
only money.
new station and 2 new engines. Let's do it.
Well, the engines do look new. The older ones are looking new, but they are old. They do look decent now. In FY 2025, now I'm adding replacing the stock of department portable radios. And that's a total of 30. We have 26 members. We always have to have a couple of spares because there's always radio that goes down for whatever reason. These are in harsh environments. And that's the cost that I received from our radio vendor, what the anticipated cost of replacing all of our fire personal radios. These are the radios that we carry with us. They're not the radios in the truck or the base radios. These are the portable radios assigned to each member. At that point, they're going to be about 11 years old. All of our entire radio infrastructure was purchased in 2013, 2014 with a joint FEMA grant with the town of Rockland. So they're still good right now and we're maintaining them, but at that point, I'm estimating we're going to have to seriously look at replacing the entire inventory that we have. That same year, we're going to be looking at needing to replace ambulance 3. That's the 2008 ambulance that is frontline now. It was a spare, but because of COVID, that is a frontline ambulance that is sharing about 30% of all of the responses with our 3 ambulances that we have in service right now. So it's a tired ambulance, but we're still having it run about 30% of the times, basically on when we know it's a suspected COVID case. If it's everybody's in the station, we're going to take that ambulance to try to not contaminate the other 2 ambulances as much if possible. That's the goal. It doesn't always work. But that's already a tired ambulance, and it's going to be very tired by then in 2025. That is the estimate, the $350,000 for the same type of ambulance that we have now. It's the heavy-duty chassis. It may possibly be able to be reduced somewhat if we don't need a stretcher system, although realistically, I include it in this in case we are not able to reuse one of the stretchers. A stretcher system in itself is about $40,000. It's like putting a Yugo in the back of the truck itself. I can't believe the cost of the stretchers, but it is what it is for the patient requirements. So those are the 2 main items for FY25, including the SCBA bottles, if that carries through on this project. FY 2026, again, would be just 1 more year of the SCBA bottles. Nothing at this point that I can see that we may need to replace.
All right, thank you, Chief. Any questions or comments or anything for the fire department capital 5-year capital plan? All right, hearing none. Thank you, Chief Nuttall. Thank you for
Hey,
joining.
folks, thank you very much.
Thank
Good
you,
luck.
Chief.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Excellent. We'll move on to our next agenda item. So Police Deputy Chief Chris Cutter here to go over the Police Department capital plan. I'll put that up on the screen for you. Let's see. All right, now we're up. Oh, I had some issue with sound. Let's see.
Yeah, sounds like each time Chief Cutter talks is like a weird ringing noise.
Yeah, let me see.
I think he's just ringing a bell.
Can you try, can you try
Trying to
again?
Get out of this.
Yeah, try it
Trying to
again.
get out of this, yeah.
That was funny,
I think
Scott.
the Bruins game is on at 8 and
Yeah, you're not coming across.
Yeah, no.
Sounds like some background noise, but I'm sure it's not on his end.
It's not his end?
I mean, it is, but like not literally in his background.
Right.
Yeah, let's see here.
Could be a wiretap.
It's gonna be all over Facebook tomorrow.
Well, that's humor.
I'm not a cat. Let's see. All right, yeah, I don't know why.
That might have been the best line I've ever heard at a congressional hearing.
Yeah.
Can you hear
No,
it?
Yeah, we can't hear you, unfortunately.
you drop again.
Do you want to try exiting and coming back? See if that helps it.
Yeah, try that.
Yeah, we're not hearing you at all, unfortunately.
Let me see here.
Gotta love technology.
All right. Let's see. Wonder if it's not. All right. Just wait for
You can say
him.
be right back if I can read your lips.
Yeah.
Talented committee here.
Yep.
Yeah, I just totally made that up.
Let's see.
Tony, you have a guest next to you.
No, Sonia's the cat now.
Why is your cat smiling at us? I can see it.
She's really hungry.
Ah,
Is this the last item on the agenda, the chief or the police?
So we have just talking about free cash and borrowing, if there's any changes, and then just scheduling our next meeting.
Yeah, do you guys, I would probably say it would be good for you to meet with the fire station building committee. Do you want to do that on the 25th or the 4th?
Oh, we got Deputy Chief back.
Okay, how do you guys hear me now?
Beautiful, perfect.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm operating on my phone now. I seriously have to figure out what's going on with these speakers here because this isn't the first time, but it seems like I have intermittent problems. Sometimes it works and then other times I'm stuck. So I'll just run down, let me just see. Okay. So you will see on my 5-year plan, it actually was good to follow Chief Nuttall because I have kind of the same the thoughts with replacement. You'll see a $10,000 replacement each year for computer equipment. So I'll start with that. What I'm looking to do is, generally computers, I think in the corporate world are good for 3 to 5 years, they say. We had a large purchase back about 7 years ago, where a bunch of computers were purchased, and that was pretty much the last time we had a bulk purchase of computers to try to upgrade what we were operating with here. So that was back in 2014. What I'm looking to do is anticipate that over the next few years, the need to upgrade those computers is going to grow. I'm already seeing where software that we're trying to run here at the station, we're running into difficulties with the computers because of the need for upgrades and things like that. Wayne Norland's been doing a great job with us trying to patch ourselves through with some of our computers to keep everything up and running. But I think where this hasn't been addressed in 6 or 7 years, that I think we're getting to that point that I need to begin to think about replacing the workstations. I currently have 36 workstations in the department, and some of them have been intermittently upgraded over the last couple of years, but the majority have not. And so my thought is that I would be able to begin to upgrade. I did have on the plan 10 computers, but actually the estimate to upgrade came in a little higher than I had figured. at about $1,700 a piece for each workstation. So that would drop me down to 6 workstations replacing each year. And I think that would be suffice, as I've done an inventory on what I have here. There have been some that, like I said, have intermittently been upgraded. But there is a large bulk that are back in the 2014. I have one that's 2008. I'm actually, as I've begun to restructure the department, I have a need for a couple more workstations that I just don't even have a computer to put on the desk. Again, Wayne's been helping me out with giving me some of the items that he may have lying around he's been able to piece together for us for that. So that's kind of the thought on the computers, is just, so that I don't get into a situation where, as we're kind of faced with now, that the majority of our computers are bought at one point, and then we're required to replace that majority at the same time. I think this is a sustainable plan where I can begin to replace some of those computers over the next 3 years, and then we have a nice spaced out period of time moving forward for when computers are going to need to be replaced. Does anybody have any questions on that?
Again, we're talking about the 10,000. I know that's not an issue. Are these desktops, or are they laptops? What do you currently have?
No, these are, I mean, we do have, Steve, we do have a selection of laptops that we're running in the cruises, but these are all desktops, towers that we have at our workstations here in the building. So that's what, I'm currently, again, I have 36 throughout the various aspects of the station. So I'm looking to just begin to start to upgrade that.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'd be wondering, which I don't want to second guess, but $1,700 for a desktop, even with monitor, seems expensive for nowadays. So I'm not sure what you're required to run, but even at 1,000, I would think you can get a sub 1,000, but 1,700 seems pretty expensive.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of anticipating about $1,000, and then the estimate came in to 1,700, which yeah, I agree, it does seem a little bit high, but I am relying on Wayne to provide that for me, and I'm a little ignorant to what operating systems are required for the systems that we're running here, and that might be where we're incurring some more costs with the software that's being loaded onto these.
That's a good point. If there's specialized software that's required for each PC, that could make sense. But again, not knowing the details, that kind of caught my eye.
Okay, well, that makes sense.
So I will go into the other thing is, and you'll see it reoccurring, and I think this is a reoccurring theme for the police department, is a purchase of police vehicles. So I believe in discussing with Chief Majensky prior to leaving, that we generally were on a 3-vehicle, 2-vehicle replacement plan. So even though that's where we have been in the years past, I wanted to take a look at it and see what I needed this year. And it does actually, even though, it seems like we're on just a reoccurring plan, it does seem to make sense to me that at this particular point, I'd be looking to replace 3 of the vehicles from the fleet. I have one of the vehicles I'd be looking at replacing has 180,000 miles on it. A second vehicle has will have 100,000 plus on it, and a third vehicle I'd be changing up, has 115,000 miles on it. And I looked at these, with the vehicles, I didn't want to just come here and tout mileage and say, hey, look at, this has 100,000 miles, because vehicles are made better nowadays, and hopefully we can kind of push the mileage a little bit more. But I think industry standard, when we talk about frontline cars, we talk about 100,000 miles on a frontline car. And then at that point, it becomes a safety issue. And then if we have a secondary or an admin car, we can put some more miles on that, because it's not, the duties aren't as demanding as the frontline cars. But what I did was I also looked at, UMass came out with did a study with, it was Bernston, the town of Bernston, but it was a nice was a nice little study that was done, and they reviewed all the parameters involved in with replacing vehicles and what really makes a difference. And they came up, I believe it was like 18 parameters, and each parameter was given a point value. And then they added up the point value on their vehicles to come up with a situation. Does it need to be replaced? Do we need to begin to think about it being replaced, or is it suffice? And in doing that, when I ran the 3 vehicles through that I'm looking to replace, even then, even though the mileage is one thing, but even taking into account where the vehicle is stored, taking into account several other parameters, we far exceed the point value for needing to be replaced. The other thing that I'm keeping in mind with the vehicles is that we recently had a management study done in the spring, and one of the things that they came up with was the fact that we had an aging fleet, and they took exception to the fact that we only had four vehicles, frontline vehicles with less than 50,000 miles. So I'm kind of keeping that in the back of my mind too, that we want to make sure that we have our vehicles, our real frontline vehicles that are operating 24 hours a day, that the mileage is not adding up too much on that. The other thing we often talk about, police cars are running 24/7. But the other thing is just, in trying to research this a little bit more, was just the fatigue value that goes into these cars, and just the fact that they're driving on the roads every day, and that how much fatigue that car is under, just on the twisting and the bumps and things like that on the frames and on the weld joints, weld locations, and how much those weld locations begin to fail as the vehicle ages, and the fact that there's a potential safety issue if that vehicle was involved in a crash if it's too old. So keeping all those things in mind, I think the 3 vehicle replacement this year, last year we did 2 vehicles, and then moving forward with that schedule of 3 and 2, I think it makes sense with the inventory that I have. Questions?
So what happens to the vehicles as they're aged out? Do we, as a town, do we find a use for them elsewhere, or do we just trade them in?
Well, I've been told, and I didn't confirm this, and Scott, maybe you can confirm this for me, but we used to, at some point, if a vehicle wasn't useful for us at that point, we would pass them along to other departments. But I believe that doesn't happen anymore. I don't know.
Once we became a green community, the Green Community Act doesn't allow us to repurpose these, particularly these vehicles, because they're just not efficient vehicles. They're exempt from the requirements that other municipal vehicles fall under because they're pursuit vehicles. So yeah, we can't just transfer them over. We don't have a lot of places we would transfer them to anyways. So the resale on them, we'll trade them in, or we'll wholesale them.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. And Joe, just to elaborate that on a little bit more, if there's an opportunity for me to repurpose the vehicle, I do. And so we almost, I have I could be running 3 to 4 cars per shift. And obviously, generally the newer cars are used. And then I have backup cars that are still here to be used if we have, for whatever reason. There's a multitude of reasons why another car would be used. But so I kind of take them and I transfer them back. I mean, one of the things that, as I'm beginning to restructure the department is to try to increase our detectives here. And for years, we haven't had a fully staffed detective unit. And I'm trying to do that now. And with that, I'm trying to repurpose some of the vehicles for their use. So recently I took one of our marked units and I had that painted and kind of made unmarked for the anticipation of those new positions. So yes. And then if a vehicle, I take a lot of, I listen to vehicle maintenance a lot. And even though you could have 2 vehicles that are obviously the same year, sometimes one vehicle is better than the other. And sometimes one vehicle is requiring more repairs versus the other. And so I rely on vehicle maintenance with Jack Kane and Marcus to kind of keep me informed of what vehicle is starting to be tired. and so I take that into account as well. So, as we're repurposing the vehicles, we are also taking the vehicles and we're using as many parts as we can off those vehicles. And we're trying to do that. And then when we finally get done with, okay, repurposing, it doesn't have another purpose, we can't use it anymore, and or the parts, it's not conducive to be taking parts off them anymore, then we would put them out onto municipal bid, so that the town can recoup some money, whatever's left on them. But generally, at that particular point, these cars are very old, and there's really not a lot of resale on them.
Okay, that makes sense.
You mentioned Jack. I mean, so maintenance on these cars is done by town employees?
Yeah, that's correct, Steve. So vehicle maintenance is a godsend to us. All the labor costs are absorbed by the DPW, and so the only thing that I am paying for is the actual parts that are needed. So yeah, so I mean, it surprised me, Steve, looking at this. I've only been in this position for a couple months now, and to see, I come from taking my wife's car into the dealership, and every time it goes in, it's $500 or $600 for the smallest of thing. And I look at like some of the, I just had a part replaced, a blower and a heater, and it was a $50 part or an $80 part. And to see that that's the extent of the repair was quite amazing to me.
That is good. So you had mentioned last year you got 2 vehicles, and I guess I haven't been paying attention, but I mean, have we been consistent? I guess this would be a question for Sue. Have we been consistent at replacing the vehicles over these years? Or Chris?
Yes, yeah, we have. We've been on I think it was a 2 and 3 schedule. So it's 2 1 year, 3 the next year.
Yeah, and
2,
you had said
3.
that.
So it's been consistent about replacing the vehicles. Yes.
Okay.
Excellent.
Well, the cost of the vehicles compared to a fire engine, you should be getting 6 or 7 vehicles.
I know it was nice to follow the fire chief. So, but yeah, so that's what we're looking. I'm looking to stay on that plan. And again, back to the computers, and then you'll see that in 2024, I'm just looking to make sure that I'm staying up on things here. I mean, we've purchased a couple copy machines about 6 or 7 years ago. Those copy machines, we do a lot of copying here. I believe with each arrest that goes over to court, we need to submit 5 packets with that. And with our records department constantly in operation and whatever, I'm just looking to maintain, our ability to maintain those copy machines. So that's what I'm looking for in 2024. It will put the ones we have now about 6 or 7 years old, and it will be a good time to begin to think about replacing them. And then in 2025, you'll see that I have on there a weapons upgrade. This department hasn't had a weapons upgrade for probably about 21 years. I mean, I was a firearms instructor with the department when we first got the weapons we had. And we went from a 9mm and we went over to a 40 caliber round. But what we've seen, or what I've seen in the last 20 years, is basically when we're dealing with firearms, a lot of times we follow the recommendations of the FBI. They're one of the most premier law enforcement agencies, and they really spend a lot of time testing ammunition rounds to come up with what is the best round for law enforcement. And it was about 2016 that the FBI switched back to 9mm. They were on 9mm until they dealt with a shootout in Miami, and I believe they lost two agents during that shootout. And at that particular point, they felt that the 9mm round wasn't sufficient enough, and they weren't getting enough penetration with that round, and so they opted to begin to suggest, and they switched themselves to a 40 caliber. We followed suit with those suggestions as well, and we went to a 40 caliber semi-automatic handgun. But you'll see since about 2016, with the advances in ammunition upgrades, that the FBI is actually coming out and saying, you know what, the 9mm round is a better round for law enforcement. It's more accurate. It's a cheaper round for training purposes, and the penetration in these new rounds are sufficient and exactly, not just sufficient, but that's what they're recommending. So I think with a firearm, we're going to be getting into well, at that particular point in 2025, we're going to be looking at our firearms that are about 25 years old. And what you begin to see with some of the older firearms is some of the springs begin to wear out. You'll see, we've even seen some stress fractures in some of the firearms based on the amount of shooting that we're doing. So I'm looking to avoid that. Obviously, a firearm is a very important tool. And I think that it's time at this point to begin to rethink the ammo selection that we're using and to upgrade our handguns to a more modern year.
And just for clarity, so for the replacing the 2 copiers, is that 2024 or 2025? And
That's 2020. Yeah, so I might be a little messed up on my 2021 would actually, I guess, be FY 2022. So then we would be 23, 24. So it would be FY 25 replacing those copy machines.
Okay.
And then FY 26, I believe, for the weapons upgrade.
All right, thank you.
What's the 22,000 going to be able to purchase?
So that would give me about 45 weapons, Steve. We currently have 30 to 31 full-time offices now, and then I have a selection of 10 to 15 part-time offices. So 45 weapons. I'm just anticipating about $500 a weapon. What happens is when we trade in, if we were to go and purchase new weapons, we would be trading in all our old weapons.
Yep.
And we really get a pretty good return on those on the older weapons. So I'm hoping to be able to purchase 45 weapons for that cost of 22,000.
Okay.
One question on the copiers, right? And I'm not sure if it's the same from a municipal standpoint, but like in a private business, we would never buy copiers. We'd have like a lease program that included repairs and toner as we needed it. So are we buying copiers outright?
Joe, I think that we might be doing a combination of that here, and I believe we do have some leases. I'm waiting to see some of the bills that are coming in, but I believe we do have a lease, or at least obviously we have some maintenance agreements with these copiers. But I believe the chief has purchased some of the copiers, and that's something I didn't have a lot of input into, and I'm looking to learn on that end of it, and I fully understand what you're saying, that at some point it may be better to lease versus purchase. But I do know we have purchased in the past, and I'm just trying to figure that out, and hopefully by that point I'll have a good idea of where we stand, and if things are different in this department versus what actually comes into play when we're doing that.
Okay. Yeah, because typically with the lease, like the company's on the hook, right? So you have a fixed amount for repairs. And if it costs them too much, they just give you a brand new copier the next year or every 2 years. So, maybe something to look into. So we're not, just having a steady expense every year as opposed to, buying out copiers.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
you know what, I gotta look into that too, because
Yeah.
I always did all the leasing of the copiers in Duxbury, and it was a great deal because, like you said, if you had a major problem, they were on the hook for it. Every 3 years, we reviewed it and looked at it and ended up with new machines. But I do remember there was an issue when we did it with certain machines at the police station, because when you lease them, you give them back at the end of the lease. Typically, they go back, and they do have memory. So there was certain units that I seem to remember that there was just at our station that we didn't lease, we purchased, because that way you never had to worry about certain information that's not supposed to, is not public information getting out there.
Yeah. And so, not to split hairs here, but that part that remembers is just a component. So I'm assuming these companies deal with municipalities.
I
You
would
could
guess
just
so too.
you could just tear that out, smash it with the hammer, and move on.
Yeah, that's something I would definitely look at as I move forward there to see the benefits of each one. So
Okay, sounds good.
Excellent. Any further questions on the police capital plan for the 5-year capital plan?
Nope.
All right, hearing no more questions, Deputy Chief Cutter, thank you for joining us.
Okay, thanks,
Yeah,
Alex.
thank
and,
you.
Thank you.
Sorry about the technical difficulties there. So,
No worries.
all right, thank
It's
you.
just that day and time, right? Stuff happens.
Yeah. All right, thank you. You guys have a good night.
You too.
Thank you, you too. All right. Let's see. On to the next agenda items, prioritize needs of exceeding and available free cash or borrowing ability. Sonia or Sue, I don't know. I know last time I spoke to Sue, no changes have been made with free cash, but turn that over to Sue or Sonia. Or anyone, I should say.
So yeah, I did, Sue and I did talk about it briefly. We're still working on the free cash. You know, there will be some of it. It's not going to be, won't be a lot of it this year. So, you know, we're going to have to be real careful with with the overall picture of what we're going to want to do. And, you know, particularly where, you know, the cruises would eat it up instantly more than what we have, I think. So
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I mean,
yeah.
if you know, we want to maintain that program, which would be great. I mean, that's 143,000 right there. Yeah.
Well, our free cash was approved. It's only 77,000, so we don't have much.
77,000. Wow.
Yeah.
So and I'm sorry again if I missed this last meeting, but is the free cash what funds most of these capital planning items?
Typically
Interesting.
we have a lot more money than that.
Wow.
Sue, I see Sue took her microphone on. Let her jump
Yeah,
in.
we usually have like a $1.3 million, right?
You have to understand that our local receipts came in like $650,000 below what it normally does. And so when you're looking at these capital items, if it comes to an enterprise fund, the enterprise funds came in healthy. So you can fund those. I can send you the document that I got from DOR. And when you're looking at the items that are going to be general funded, you might be having to look at borrowing or putting off.
Yeah, I think this might be a big year where, you know, we're not really ready to say it yet, but I do think that a lot of these items like the cruises, I think they're going to have to get another year out of them. You know, there's not much else we can do. You know, we can pick away at some stuff, maybe, you know, but you can see like the price of those cruises, even doing one of them will eat up a lot of the free cash. I don't want to be borrowing to buy a new car. I mean, I hate doing it for myself. I hate doing it for the town. So I don't know, you know, we have to wait till we kind of, let's get a little more into this process or through it. And particularly with the finance committee end of it, see what some of the warrant articles are going to be. And then we'll make some recommendations, but yeah, it's just not gonna happen this year. I mean, it's like Sue said, I mean, we had a pretty big shortfall, you know, 650,000 on revenue. You know, we put a healthy amount of money into stabilization last year. I think we're probably gonna use some of that money, but how we're gonna use it, you know, it's gonna be up to the voters, and B, we're not really there yet to sort of make those recommendations.
Yeah.
But we are under the gun as far as time goes, so we will get there pretty quickly.
Yeah, so I mean, is it even possible to look forward to future years? I mean, I know we're kind of in turbulent times, but I'm wondering, like, does anything change this year that makes next year better? Realistically, are we talking like 3 years before we kind of get back to where we used to be?
We're starting and we're putting a budget together that's going to be based on things that are going to happen after July 1. Right?
What does July 1 mean? Sorry.
That's when the fiscal year, that's
Oh,
when
gotcha.
we're going in to put together our budget for our next fiscal year, which
Yep.
and I fully anticipate a lot of things are coming around and turning around, and I think that the final quarter of this year will probably be better than last year. And then I do think that we'll have new sources of revenue that'll going to realize in the next fiscal year. So after July 1, probably after the first quarter of the next fiscal year, we'll start realizing revenues from the marijuana shops. And we're also going to start seeing that, hopefully, you know, the meals tax is coming back in again, and the excise tax is up, and, you know, people are buying cars, people are going back out to eat, people are spending money, doing trips, doing whatever. And, you know, assuming that everything else stays the same, then I do anticipate the next couple of years being better. Now, that being said, you know, gas shoots up to $3.50, $4 a gallon.
Yeah.
People don't get hired back and the restaurants don't reopen.
Yeah.
I mean, you can only smoke so much pot. We're only going to make so much money out of that. We're not working.
So is that the message, Scott? Everyone smoke pot?
Town manager says that
Everyone. Don't
you have to smoke it, you can chew it.
So I am I'm
Gummies.
optimistic, but cautiously optimistic.
Yeah.
Going forward. And then I think to help to make sure that we don't, put ourselves too behind the eight ball, then I think, yeah, we look at maybe some of the stabilization or some borrowing for some things that absolutely have to get done.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I'm a little more pessimistic. That's why I'm asking the question. I mean, I don't see 2021 being a stellar year, but hopefully I'm wrong.
Yeah.
So with that, any more discussion on free cash or borrowing? Hearing none, move on to the next agenda item, last agenda item. So next meeting schedule. I know, Scott, you had spoken a little earlier before in the meeting of, another department we could have come discussing their capital plan.
Who do we have left?
Okay, I'm sorry about my camera, everybody. It's very distracting for me, so I can only imagine what it is for you guys. It just keeps going on and off.
No worries, Marty. You're all right.
I didn't even notice until you just said something.
Yeah.
Should have never said anything. I'm sorry.
Right now it's annoying me.
Yeah, which other departments are on that list?
Well, we do have, town hall, so library.
Well, Sue and I could probably give you a rundown next time on some of the big things that she's looking at with roofs and the windows. And like I said, I'd like to get, if you want to put it out, instead of meeting next week, put it out 2 weeks. I think I can get the fire station feasibility committee, but I do want to make sure they've had that talk with KVA before then.
All right.
That'd be good.
And I think, I'm not sure. I want to talk to Wayne in the IT department just to see what his plan and if there's anything he wanted to really look at big picture wise. And also, I'll have the conversation with internally, with Sue, and because some of the things pop into mind that, the computers at the police station, maybe they should be more something that he should be looking at into his budget, into a bigger program if he's already, got in his idea that he has to get a few for town hall or whatever, maybe we should be doing it all together. So let me work on that this week.
All right.
That'll give you a little more substance.
Yeah.
So when John Stone was here last week, did they go over both, all three, like highway, MS4, and Parks and Grounds?
We did go over, yes.
Yeah, he went over everything.
Yes.
Okay. And so what about sewer? Is that one that's still open, or?
Yes, it is. I was just going to mention that.
Okay.
He didn't go over that last week?
He's the superintendent of sewer, right, John?
Yeah, I think he might have gone over that last week as well. But again, it also comes out of the sewer enterprise fund. It's not general fund.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
I know, I know, I mean, we have the big sewer main project going on. He didn't talk about that at all?
Not, to my knowledge, I don't remember.
Okay.
Oh, I could be wrong, but I don't remember. I don't think he did.
He talked,
I think he went into it very much. They're working on bids right now. And we've just submitted an application to the state to borrow from the Clean Water Trust. So it's a totally different type of program than we normally would do for a borrowing that you can only do for qualified projects that we have to submit lots of paperwork. Well, I think we did kind of touch on it, that John has done a lot of work to get the ball rolling, and we are just about ready for the borrowing phase once we get, full bids in. So that process is starting. Again, that's going to be paid from the sewer enterprise fund. So it's not going to hit the general fund budget.
Okay.
Mhm.
Excellent. Then Scott, do we want to do for, say 2 weeks from today?
Yeah, I think that'll give it time. Like I said, I want, let things flush out a bit more with the rest of the budget and give the fire station committee time to meet with their designer. And then they can make a game plan to come in. But I think it'd be great to have them in.
Right, that sounds good to me.
but it does sound like the 35K is gonna be in the form of an article and not be a capital plan item.
Yeah, it'll definitely be an article. But I do think that it's important because, it's a big ticket item. And so it's going to affect everything. As Sonia will tell you, I mean, as we're looking at other things going forward, it will affect, borrowing and when you want to borrow and, when we're going to stop paying on this. So yeah, whatever we borrow, we got to pay for somehow, right?
Yeah.
So, everything we do is going to have an effect on what your ultimate, 5-year plan is going to be.
Okay.
And again, I think it's important that they get out and let as many people and as many committees know about this to find out, if there are issues, let's work them out. Let's find out the answers and let's get as much information out there before town meeting as we can.
Right.
All right, so, and then we also, I noticed also on the capital planning committee plan, we also have the senior center. So do we want to speak to the council on aging?
Yeah. Can we get her in here, Sue, do you think?
You can, but you're talking about doing the HVAC project?
Is that what she had on there?
I believe so. It's for upgrading the heating and air conditioning, correct?
Yes.
So currently I'm working on a Green Communities grant to get that covered. So it's on the capital plan, hoping that we don't need to cover it through town expenses. That and the HVAC that the golf course has on there, I'm hoping to get a grant for that. So it's there saying that something that we're looking at needing, but we're hoping to get it by a grant.
Okay. All right, excellent. Good. All right. So on that note, why don't we reschedule to have another meeting let me get it on my schedule here. So if we want to shoot for Thursday, 2 weeks from now, so it'll be March 4th at 7 p.m. Does that work for the committee?
Works for me.
Right. Excellent. So, all right. So our next capital planning committee, our next capital planning committee meeting will be March 4th at 7 p.m., 2 Thursdays from now. With that being said, I'll hear any motions to adjourn.
Just let me know who you want on that committee to be there for that night so I can make sure I email them.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for reminding me, sorry. Right.
All right, a motion to adjourn.
All right, Joe makes the motion.
Second.
Steve seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, unanimous, all right. The time being 8:36. Capital Planning Committee meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.